so all my photos are out there. I have holding the camera, and and I'm recording now myself. Sorry about that. That'd be probably pretty smart.
It's a lot of equipment, man. Look at all that.
Tony, you watching the chat?
Yes.
I like how all that stuff's not even plugged in, too, so it's for the look more than it is. Look at that cable just completely unplugged.
Yeah.
The illusion that we're recording.
It is.
He's like, look at all my cool shit, man.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Well, you know what? It happened. We were filming Dustin, and power plugged in and everything. Camera died. Well, the other one part was plugged in, but not the other part. You know, it happens. It happens.
Yeah, it does.
So,
All right, this looks like we're going. So,
Hello, Internet.
hello, internet. Coming from Manhattan, Tribeca, New York City,
yeah.
on a rainy day, actually.
On a rainy
Although it's
day.
clearing up.
All right, so.
Hey, Tech, are you?
I'm rolling.
Does someone want to go live on their Instagram? We could, or I could do that.
You can,
Yeah,
sure.
where's my phone?
All right.
I've actually never done it.
We're gonna do it now.
Yeah.
Never went live on Instagram.
Going live.
I have only 1,000 followers. You guys are more than that, so you guys should grow.
I got about 400, I think.
I think Stevens is the biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what though? It's a lot of inorganic followers because I've had them for quite some time. But like the best are the ones that have like 1,000 followers, but then their photos have like 2,000 likes.
Yeah.
You know, mine are not. And plus I've. Alright, how do you hold on? It's always a. What do you mean? How do I even set this thing up?
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and set up the stream at least. We'll start the podcast in just a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very first, actually, Space Junk Live broadcast on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. So we're coming at you live. I'm Tony Darnell from deepastronomy.space, and we are, for the first time, I'm meeting my co-host, Dustin Gibson. Man, it is so awesome
Yes,
to see
sir.
you finally.
Yeah.
We met for the first time just a couple of days ago, and Ian Lauer. It's good to see you guys,
How you
man.
doing?
Both these guys are from OPT telescopes, and we've been doing Space Junk for a while now. Here we are in New York.
Yeah, we're over
Day
20
drinking.
episodes.
Hey, cheers.
Hey,
All right. All right.
Cheers, everybody.
California here,
Yeah,
so-
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
Well, it's time, though. We're recording a podcast with everybody in the same room for the first time.
Yeah.
Ever. After 25 episodes? 24?
Never been done.
Yeah.
And
First time.
in the same way that we, appreciate the value of what the internet's done for bringing amateur astronomers together, it allows us to do this podcast from anywhere in the world.
Great. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're streaming now because we can, but, we also, that we're recording this audio here, all of this stuff fits in a backpack, so we could do this podcast anywhere we want. So.
And we will be, right?
Yeah.
From Times Square, we're going to be
Yeah.
recording,
Yeah.
or streaming at least.
So if anyone's out there in the New York world, Times Square, Saturday, 7 o'clock, setting up in front of the H&M and the big flag, and hopefully the weather will hold out, and hopefully the NYPD terrorism control unit won't shut us down like they did last year.
No, we're good. We're good. You got to have faith this time.
I got a lot of faith.
Yeah, well, let's talk about why we're here. So we are all coming together in the spirit of amateur astronomy, right? We all want to promote the night sky. So, Dustin, what are we doing here, man?
We are going to be setting up scopes in Times Square again for the second time. Steven, you and I did that 2 years ago.
Yep.
And it went surprisingly well, considering that we never really talked to the city. We just kept the city on the runaround the whole time thinking we had. But we got thrown out by the counterterrorism unit. But by the time they had thrown us out, man, we had shown a lot of people space. I mean, you were
Big
running
crowds.
the visual scope the entire time.
Actually, I just pulled some of the old photos, and I was there with my buddy Trip, who came down, and you guys were setting up the scopes, and we had big, huge circles of people around us, kids around us, looking up, and it was instantaneously, you set a scope up there, and
Yeah.
people take the interest. And so I'm super excited for today, especially being a Saturday, because sometimes Times Square, despite what people think, can become pretty quiet at nighttime during the week. you
Oh,
know?
really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep. It's pretty touristy, so once it gets, but on the weekends, it's kind of sometimes a mob scene.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we want. We want to show everyone.
Yeah.
And, A lot of people don't even think you can see stars in New York, let alone image deep space nebula and galaxies. So it's going to be.
Well, that's how you throw the world's largest star party. Is you bring the star party to the world's largest crowds.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely.
Stars right here.
Yeah.
Space junk stars.
Space
That's
junk.
right. That's right.
You can't see my face on this, but I'm blushing in your presence. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, Stephen, let me ask you. I mean, you live in New York City. Is there a vibrant amateur astronomy community here?
When I first got into it, I thought I was probably the only one that had a telescope, and I was like, because, I mean, most people, like you said, they don't even think you can see stars, and under the streetlights, you can't. But there actually is a fairly vibrant, not super big, but the more I get into it, we do have the AAA, but most of them actually kind of live in Staten Island here and there. However, Al Nagler from Tel Aviv, born and raised in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Jupiter Joe. In the Bronx, now New Rochelle, and Astromom, who is one of my favorite female imagers, she lives out Long Island. So not a whole lot directly here in Manhattan, which I want to get more people involved in. You know, even if you have a window, you can look out the window with the scope.
Yeah.
So, but nothing like California.
Well, you know, you think you have this concentration of people in New York City. I mean, it's one of the densest concentrations in the world. It's certainly not the densest, but it's one of them. And with this many people, you have that few imaging, or even considering astronomy as a primary hobby, because people really don't know you can do it. I think it's like you're saying.
Very true.
And even the people that are doing it, they're still for a very long time have been considerable limitations. But now with the filtration, it's really not as big an issue as it used to be. You can use things like the Triad filter or just narrowband filters in general and do the same kind of imaging that a lot of us are doing out in the deserts.
Yeah, and actually now that I think about it, there are a couple imagers maybe here and there. One guy in Queens is but I actually don't know of anyone in Manhattan that
At all.
that actually
Wow.
images. And I'm trying to think anyone in Manhattan actually has a telescope.
So you never just walk through here and see somebody with a telescope set up outside. You never see that in Manhattan.
Only time you ever see it is if there's some sort of maybe AAA event. But like I said, a lot of those people come from Staten Island or maybe right inside Jersey.
Yeah.
Or
It's amazing to think about. I mean, how many people are there?
Actually in Manhattan, now that I think about it, no.
8 million people, right, in New York?
And 1.2, maybe 1.3 now in Manhattan.
Yeah, we got to change that. We got to do everything we
Actually,
can.
it's probably lowest scope to people ratio in the whole world here, just because there's so many people and so few scopes. But I mean, the one thing though, and people, once I got into it, like I said, most people don't think you can see stars, but once you're above the streetlights, you can. But the one thing in New York I've realized is that we actually have a lot of nights, despite this, of clear skies. Because I've traveled a lot with my work, and I go to these remote towns, and there's no light pollution.
Sure.
But there's clouds 6 to 7 days, and now with the technology, the Triad filter, you can shoot through light pollution. You can't shoot through clouds.
You're right.
If you have a cloud filter,
Not yet,
then
anyway.
we are.
Yeah, maybe that's next.
That's the next thing. So.
Well, what's impressive is there's the Hayden Planetarium here, which is, that's Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Huge name in astronomy. So you would think that there are a lot of people in New York very, very interested in astronomy. But once you get outside of the planetarium, you look up, what do you see? You see buildings, signs and just windows all the way up. So I think there are people who are interested in astronomy who live here. They just haven't had that flame fanned to keep that excitement growing. And I think doing something like this is a great opportunity to fan that flame.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of a disconnect there is just because of the light pollution. It's easy to get disconnected here for what goes on up over our heads, So I just wonder how much light pollution plays a role in that. But doing what we're doing is going to help remind people, well, it's not really that big a barrier.
If you get out, like for example, if you're right in Times Square, or you're right, literally, even if you're in the desert and there's a light right above you, you can't see the stars. You can't see right above that light. But once you either go a little bit away from it or above it, you can. But Battery Park, all along, even Central Park, you can see some good stuff right in the middle of Central Park.
Yeah.
So it's.
But we
it's
went through there yesterday. I didn't see anybody out there with any solar scopes or setting up for the night or anything. It's amazing.
It is
Just
amazing.
the concentration of people. You'd think there would be, even if there's a low percentage interest, there's still so many people. You'd think you'd see it everywhere,
Yeah.
and you don't at all. And I think that we talk about this all the time on the podcast, but. Even if science, the conversation obviously with astronomy always goes to a science because astronomy is a science, right? But there's a philosophical perspective here that I think a lot of people get just as much, if not more, from than the science itself. And that perspective is too valuable to be ignored in looking out into the universe and seeing our place in it. If you can't see your neighborhood, how the hell do you ever know where you are or even what you are, right? How do you ever define that for yourself even?
Google Maps now.
If you've got 8 million people, 8 million people lacking that, or that lack even the ability to see the potential because of what they see as a limitation that isn't real. It's not a barrier that really exists anymore. That's a problem.
It's very true.
That's a problem.
It's very true. Especially like for myself when I first got into it, I think almost all astrophotographers usually start visual, most of them I think.
Yeah.
And I started visual. I still do enjoy doing visual. And I love living in New York City. I love the hustle bustle. You want to go out at 3 o'clock in the morning and have a bite to eat. It's there. You can do this. You can do that. But sometimes it's actually taking a step back and was looking up at the sky. And man, when you see Jupiter or Saturn or some of these like distant, like the Orion Nebula, it kind of puts things in a perspective that, wow, like it kind of slows you down. Because here is always go, 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 go.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to every once in a while slow down and kind of get that perspective, know your place,
Yeah.
We were talking about this yesterday when we were on the subway, but it's a little bit of culture shock from us coming from Southern California here. Every time we come here, I feel this way, but the pace is so different in Manhattan than it is in Southern California, really anywhere in San Diego County, where there, I mean, it's just the whole the whole lifestyle, I think, is different. You go into businesses, everybody's in sandals, or just the pace in the stress level, honestly, is probably the best way to put it. Just feels so much lower. It's always sunny. It's 72 degrees year round. It's like Groundhog Day. Yeah. But then out here, man, everybody's on a mission. Wherever they're going, they're looking down, and they're just like, get out of my way. I'm on my way somewhere, and you are in the way.
Speed walkers.
Speed walkers.
Get on the train,
Yeah, I think that you're right, though. Astronomy does that, and is probably very helpful in that, in just getting someone to look up and realizing, the scale, the magnitude, and our place in that, I think does slow you down. It forces you into what is probably a more real reality than the one that we live in these little bubbles. In Manhattan is certainly a bubble that forces this. Get on the subway, go get where you're going, rush there as quickly as you can, and don't talk to anyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of practical considerations for that. You just got to get where you're going. You got to get to work, wherever you got to go.
Yeah.
But, you're right. It's we need to take time to just
slow down.
Look up, and slow down. My favorite part about what we're doing today is we are recording this for broadcast or to go on our podcast syndication next week. But the fact that we're streaming live, we get connections from all over the world. So I just want to say, Lion G saying greetings from Amsterdam or Holland, Amsterdam. Thank you.
Coming to Amsterdam in June.
And also, Andy Cowley makes a good point. He goes, you need to do like we do in the UK and turn the street lights off after midnight. You wouldn't think about it, but the UK has one of the most vibrant amateur astronomy communities I've ever seen. I mean, when I do the hangouts for Telescope Talk, the amateur version, everybody's in the UK, and they've got all of them have telescopes. You'd think that would be a problem for them because of the clouds and the weather and stuff.
Right.
But there's a big community out there in the UK.
It's difficult to get cities to take that into consideration, though, turning the lights off. There's kind of a rampant paranoia.
Well, there's another solution. What Alamogordo, New Mexico did, which is home to Apache Point Observatory and Sac Peak Observatory in New Mexico, all of the lights in Alamogordo, which is right at the base of the mountain of Sacramento Peak, are sodium vapor lamps. All of them. It's just an orange city at night. And all of that can be filtered out by the observatory. So, okay, maybe you can't turn the lights off, but you can make them easier to filter.
And that's what
Alamogordo does.
New York is a very green city, people think. But one, I don't think they'd ever want the lights being turned off. I think just a mass amount of people and for safety, this and that. However, though, next time we're in Midtown, which you will, just look up. The entire building, every single light is on in the entire building, and there ain't no one in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So, like that, we also do a beautiful skyline. It's because it's lit up. If they turn all the lights off, you won't be able to see
That's
anything.
right, yeah.
So, it's...
One thing you don't see out here the way you do in California, too, it's a little bit different for us, is everything. You see solar everywhere in Southern California. I mean, the majority of the houses.
Like panels and
yeah, panels are on everything. And then you drive 30 minutes inland, and it's I mean, actually, you saw them when you visited the solar or the wind farms.
Oh man, I've never seen so many windmills in my entire
yeah,
life.
Thousands
of them for
as
miles.
far as you can see.
Yeah.
You know, it's everywhere, but I don't see any of that here. I haven't
No.
seen solar panels anywhere we've gone, and
Right,
I haven't. Yeah, I mean, but maybe it's just because of the footprint of some of this stuff. You don't really have it. You know, these buildings take up.
I think also
a concrete
one
jungle.
is that for the most people in New York rent, and so getting
So
solar
why
panels
invest?
is,
Yeah.
why have if I'm only going to be here for a year or
Yeah.
Has to already be here in order to be able to
exactly,
use
and
them.
so people move around quite a bit in the city. I think the average person lives 2.5 years in the city. I think I saw one statistic as far as because a lot of people come and go, whether internship, they move here, they realize maybe it's not for them, or the rent may be too much, or a lot of people actually move here and then kind of want to start a family and kind of move out to the suburbs. It's a very, very common thing. So, not my thing, but it's a very common thing. So
Right.
why invest in solar panels and this and that? And second,
Well, you've been
Con
here.
Ed as our company, electric company.
So you're an outlier. You've been here a lot longer than 2.5 years.
Correct. I've been here 8 years now, and Kara actually has been here, oh man, almost 20 years?
You're
Wow.
committed.
Yeah, committed.
Yeah.
But I love it here. I can't see living in another place. Only the place I can live in is Southern California.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I might as well go to the second best place in the world.
All right, I just want to take a brief break here and remind everybody who's just joined us, you're listening to Space Junk Live podcast, recording from Manhattan in the wonderful home of Stephen Swancoat, who is being our host here in,
Oh,
in
yeah.
Manhattan.
It's great
I'm
to
also
have you
joined,
guys.
and I'm Tony Darnell from deepastronomy.space. This is Dustin Gibson and Ian Lauer, both from OPT Telescope. So we are also monitoring all the chats, so hopefully you guys will leave us questions. It's kind of cool. I just want to read one that I just got from, where did me scroll up, from Norsvast. He's asking, I live in Iraq, and the first time I saw Jupiter and its moons was through a terrible homemade reflector telescope that I made. What type of telescope do you recommend to someone new to astronomy? And this is the group to ask.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take it.
All right, go
First
for
and
it.
Foremost. And actually, my first scope was like a 120 refractor, just like a low budget refractor. I thought it was great. One, you kind of get wide field, so you can see a lot of targets. And second is that it's more contrast than a reflector. But the biggest thing I have with reflectors, and I find, is that if the mirrors, for any reason, kind of come a little bit out of collimation, it is such a daunting task, I think, to someone who's so new that they're not going to even bother trying to figure out how to realign the mirrors. And it can happen during
Yeah.
shipping or mishandling the scope. So I think a basic refractor is the best way. It's lightweight, and so I think it's something, because my brother got a big Dobsonian.
Yeah.
And gorgeous scope. But you know what? It was so big to try to get it out there and pick it up, and then it came a little uncollimated, and it was just like, that was the last he ever used it.
Right.
Versus a refractor, you pick up, you go, and if you like it, then you can bump up to something bigger.
Sure.
So that's
really
my
good.
opinion.
That's
I think,
really
at
good
least.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the best telescope is the one you're going to use the most.
There you go.
Because for some people, they don't mind getting a reflector, so you could get a big Dobsonian for a good price.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind learning how to collimate it, that's perfect. And if you aren't dragging it around, if you're setting up in your backyard, I think that is the perfect telescope to get. Now, for some people, they want the simplicity of a refractor, and that's perfectly fine too. It's just as long as you're using it, because you can still get great views, even with a 3-inch refractor. You can still see the moons around Jupiter. You can still see the rings around Saturn. So, I always say the best telescope's the one that you use.
Yeah.
Very true.
I usually push. So I started with the Dobsonian, and so it may just be me
I'm like you.
biased to my experience.
Yeah, I like
But
that too.
I like what you said about the contrast, because you're right. The best contrast you're going to get is a refractor, because there's no central obstruction. There's no secondary mirror. It's just wide open aperture all the way through the tube. With a Newtonian or a Dobsonian, right? You have a very small central obstruction because it's tilted on edge to shoot the image out the side. So the contrast is still really good, but you get the benefit of having mirrors, so you can get big aperture.
Yeah.
And in visual astronomy, aperture is still king.
That's true.
And I started with a 12-inch Dob. It split into two pieces, so it was easy to carry around. And I was a customer at OPT before I bought the company with Jenny, and they told me when I got it, it's not worth having if you're not going to buy the collimation tool. So they sold me a laser, and the laser collimation took 20 seconds at most. It does it for you. And once it's collimated, a big scope like that, when you're seeing, I wasn't just seeing the moons of Jupiter, I was seeing the shadow of the moons move across the planet as they were transiting. That's something that you just can't get with a small scope. And that big aperture, I think when people see the moon even through it, it's just they're hooked. Seeing something like that is just absolutely incredible.
I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but I think it kind of goes back to Ian, what you said, the one you use the most, because if you want to think of a place like New York City, my first apartment is smaller than the kitchen we're sitting in right now,
right.
And 220 square feet, and a Dobsonian is a big thing, to haul, and so that might take up more space than you really want. So
Sure.
a small refractor for that person. So I think it's more one of these things that it's a tool. What do you kind of want to get out of the tool? But I think at least when you're getting your feet wet, get something, even if it's a pair of binoculars, that will at least get you up looking at the sky. Because you know what? You said, Tony, today we did an interview. Just get out there and take a look and invest in something small to take a look and see, is this something that you want to go more into? And you know what? You may go down that wormhole and end up getting into bigger scopes and remote observatories and all sorts of stuff. And that's that's what we live for.
Yeah.
But you know what though? I don't want someone to get something that it's not the right tool for them right off the bat, and then astronomy leaves a sour taste in the rest of their mouth.
Yeah.
And so I tried to get into it once. It was way too complicated. I ain't doing it again. Well, you got the wrong thing.
Yeah,
it's like,
for
hey,
sure.
if you're going four-wheeling, you don't want to get the sports car. And if you're gonna go drag racing, you don't want to get the Jeep. So I think the right tool, depending on where you live and what you want to do, is right. And there is no right answer.
Sure. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, Ho Muffin says, you folks still doing the NYC thing. Look, weather looks to be crappy. Yeah, I don't know, the forecast for tomorrow is not looking great.
It does today, but tomorrow it's going to be clear,
Yeah.
Right in the rain guide, so they hold off.
Yeah, weather's bad today, but when you do something like this, you've always got the deck stacked a little bit against you.
Yes.
And so it's all right. If we get any time at all clear, we will get this done.
Yep.
And I think the chances of us having even an hour clear are still really good. It says partly cloudy. We'll make this happen.
Honestly, I think even just getting out there and setting up the scopes and having people see it is awesome,
You die.
Yeah. We're still streaming, but we're going to probably edit this out of the audio. I got to go get my power supply for this laptop. So
we're still going?
Yeah, we're still going.
Audio still good?
He forgot the power
he's
plug.
He's still streaming. It's just my chat.
No worries.
The man forgot the power plug.
Talking about blood.
It's that day drinking he's talking about. Although honestly, when I poured everybody's drinks, I did a splash here and there, and then he got half the bottle.
The rest of the
bottle. Yeah. We don't get to see Tony enough. Figured why not? But I didn't know it was going to cost us a power plug.
Oh man.
We got extra bangs in case we need to power up between. So.
Man, this is my second one of the day, but this 3-hour time difference is.
Oh, the second one out. No, my second one out is.
Yeah. It's that 3-hour time difference is a hell of a thing, man.
I know it catches up to you. So that's what's we'll catch up today because tomorrow's big day. We got NEEF tomorrow.
Yeah, we got NEEF.
All day, get up and.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I'm excited too.
Let's talk about NEEF. What is that thing?
Northeast Astronomy Forum.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the biggest trade show in astronomy for North America.
Mm-hmm.
All the manufacturers are going to be there. They love revealing new products. It's really exciting because there's, let's face it, these are toys, man.
Yeah.
And we all want to see what the new toys are,
That's
right?
right.
NEEF is the place where the new toys are revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's a good way to connect with people that you have friends. I have friends, in the astronomy world. And actually, even today, in between, I had a set of rings I put on Astronomy a long time ago, and they're still up there. Guys, still got them? He's like, yeah. He's like, you can ship them, but if you come in a NEEF tomorrow, I'm like, oh wow. This could be anyone, but he's like,
yeah.
I was like, I gotta try to find them in time. But yeah, so you never know who you can meet there, and it's. I only went there one time and I had a good time.
Yeah. How many people go to these things, guys?
A couple thousand, probably, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine it's somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000. I honestly don't know though.
Yeah.
Pulling that number out of the
I
air.
haven't been to one in a long time,
Yeah.
so I don't know. And I've never been to NEEF. So.
Well, they have a cool event outside. They do solar during the day.
Yeah.
which would be really cool.
Yeah.
You know, check out the sun.
TJ Connolly would be there.
TJ Connolly would be
he'll
there.
set up, and
The big lunch.
that guy's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? I saw that when I was there the first time, and then I completely forgot. And then I was walking out, and they were taking them down. And at that time, I never even looked at it through a solar scope. So I know very little of solar. That's why I'm happy you brought yours, and we'll see if we see the sun.
Well, you know very little, pretty much anything, though.
Pretty much, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah. You cheated your way through med school?
no, I have a twin brother, and
Yeah.
so he did all that.
Really smart guy.
He did all the
Really
testing,
smart guy,
and
yeah.
I just went in for the patient interaction.
Yeah. That's
So-
good. That's good, yeah.
So I say my good looks and charm
Mhm.
got me halfway through, and
Where do you hide the good looks?
underneath the smile.
That's so cheesy. Well, one thing that
Dustin's blushing now.
Oh, that's
one
uncomfortable.
One thing that was really cool. Yesterday, we got to meet an astronaut who actually went to space.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was.
Don Pettit,
Yeah.
amazing.
I don't even
guy.
know how to describe that dinner. You know, sitting next to a guy. You know, it's kind of surreal when you think about it. Like, this guy is on the frontier of human knowledge. I mean, he's literally living that life that is going to space. And, I mean, even when he was talking about it, he's just like, oh, yeah, I'm going back up, you know.
He was so casual. He was like, yeah, and then, you know, when we went out and did the spacewalk,
Yeah.
okay, we do spacewalk, you know, no problem, just another day on the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to remind him, you can't just say, yeah, when I was doing my spacewalk. Like, that's not a normal conversation.
It is not a normal conversation. And what I thought was actually pretty funny when he was mentioning how, like, you asked him if he's afraid to go up. He ain't afraid to go up. He's more afraid of, like, the desk job or the
that's what he
county
said.
job or this and that. That's what scares him.
Yeah.
Getting into rocket, and I was like, man, these are things I never thought of, you know?
Yeah.
So,
It takes a special kind of something to just get onto something that you know is just has any potential at any moment to blow up. So.
and one thing Dustin said today, mentioned was that, I think a lot of people grow up wanting to be an astronaut. Actually Tony mentioned it today, and I know Jupiter Joe.
Yeah.
But he actually followed through and did it.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
When you set your mind to something, and it ain't easy. I know it can't be easy.
Every kid starts there saying, I'm going to be an astronaut. He actually did it.
Yeah.
He actually
Well, what
did
was it? The last astronaut class they announced, was it like 12 people, 11 people, something like that, out of tens of thousands of people who apply. So it's
But on top
pretty.
of that, he's actually the oldest active astronaut.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One that has a patent.
Yeah.
And also did that expedition trying to find meteorites in Antarctica. So very
Yeah.
Yeah.
well rounded, and actually pretty funny guy too.
Yeah, he
He was really
patented.
engaged.
He patented the first ever cup that you can use in zero G, zero gravity. This cup will he designed it around liquid dynamics.
Yeah,
right?
fluid
Yeah.
dynamics.
Fluid dynamics.
Purely
Yeah.
based on mathematics of fluid dynamics.
Yeah.
Really
Because
cool.
before you had to have a straw, otherwise we had no
Or
way
a bag, yeah.
Yep, getting everything
Yeah,
out.
and he
so.
made it with a bag while he was up there.
Yeah,
Just
I know.
being
Simple
creative.
discoveries.
That was cool.
Yep, and then came back and made it, and I was super touched by that. He brought one of the cups. Said they take 3 weeks to make his little tiny batch of these cups, and he brought one and gave it to me, and I still am like, wow. I met an astronaut, and he gave me something.
Yeah,
It's
one
nuts.
of a kind,
I know,
It
man.
was,
I know. He is an incredible guy.
What was awesome too was seeing his photos, because he's a photographer, and so a lot
He's a
of the photos
phenomenal
from space. I mean, some of the time lapses that he was showing us on his iPad was, oh my gosh, I was blown away. How amazing, how beautiful these shots are. And he's like, oh yeah, these are all public domain. You can go online and download
That's
them
right.
and use
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
It is amazing.
And that's something that you should all know is about NASA, is that anything they put out that comes out of a space program or any kind of a mission is all available to all of us for free. And
Which is
that's a great
And I
resource.
think it should be.
Yeah.
It's like this is things the government are doing that's great, putting out the knowledge for people.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to go out there and look at it is your choice, but at least it's there if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
So, more knowledge, the better.
Yeah.
I loved his response too when he was talking about flat Earth. It was not at all malicious. It was not at all like, let's start this fight. He was just saying, I think as you put it, well, that hasn't been my experience, right?
Exactly.
When he's up there, because he can see, with his day job, he can see the curvature of the Earth, looking down at it. Every one of his pictures, you could see it, even in the videos and everything. And he wasn't like, hey, people are stupid for believing that or anything like that.
Yeah.
There was no fight in him. He's saying, hey, my job is to make sure that we expand human awareness and knowledge, and that hasn't been my experience. And I thought, what a beautiful
A lot of people get worked up,
approach
and
to that. Yeah.
he makes a good point. Like, you're not going to change their minds, and flat earthers ain't going to change your minds, and
Right.
so you can either battle the minds or just kind of realize, hey, this is what I believe, this is what you believe, and life's still great and moves on.
Yeah.
That's right. It's not a conversation based on facts. If it
Right.
were, you could maybe sway somebody, but there's not enough honesty in the conversation to want to learn from the other. We're no more willing to learn from a flat earther than they are from us. And so it's...
A globetard, they call us globetards.
Globetards, yes. Yes. And I'm not going to say what we call them, but...
Hey, I mean, it's... you look at his photos, though, it's hard to... It's kind of hard to argue with. These are photos he's taking on a daily basis. 3,000 photos a day, he said.
Gorgeous.
He's taking when he's up there.
Yeah.
And they're just unbelievable photos.
And how many cameras they go through, and
Yeah.
burn the sensor out, and...
Cosmic ray strikes on the sensor. It's a lot of cool stuff he was showing us. Very intelligent guy. Intelligent.
I love it. Actually, what was he mentioning? Because they get a little tiny, personal box. He's like, oh, I'll take this up there, and then I'll just machine the rest up there in the ISS. I'm like, wow, that's pretty, what do you like a MacGyver up there, It's like, we got a toothpick, got some duct tape, we need to make a new camera.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Actually, no, he did invent a barn door system for tracking.
Yeah.
That was another, so I'm very impressed, it's like not only just a science-based mind, but it's a creative mind.
Well, and
Because
he's
you
a
have to
true
think of
astronomer.
something. Yeah.
He is.
He's a true amateur astronomer in that way. Like, he wants to develop things that he can use to do what we're doing down here up there.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful part of any field. It's usually a lot of some of the discoveries that come from people trying, well, can I do this or can I do that? Or what would make my life easier?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
try a filter. It's great.
Exactly.
Why should I have this complex filter wheel? Can't we just all do it in one? And
Yeah,
pretty
definitely.
much, bam, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's...
There it is.
Okay, I need to do this more during the podcast. I'm going to do it here now. I'm going to break and remind everybody. You are watching a Space Junk podcast live recording from New York City, where we are going to be going to Times Square tomorrow. I'm Tony Darnell. This is Dustin Gibson, Ian Lauer, and Stephen Swancoat.
Bonjour.
And we are doing this live for the first time. We might do this more in the future,
we
right?
should.
But if if you have not gotten Space Junk yet on your podcast syndication, go there and get it. It's being syndicated on all the biggies, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It goes to all the ones that Anchor knows about. We start on Anchor, Anchor.fm, and then it sends it out to everything. And they're listed there.
We should start coming to do this in some other cities with people,
I'd
too,
love to,
man.
man.
Yeah, I
That
know.
would be
People have
so
asked
much
when we're
fun.
coming to different cities. We should do
paid
that.
more and more attention of learning the podcast, because I know you had it, but I was like, okay, what's going on? But then from people like Kat Machin,
Right.
David
Yeah, we've had some
Pellevue,
great guests.
It's great to kind of get this whole, I wouldn't even say hodgepodge, but you're not just focused on one sect of okay, we're only going to do these advanced astronomers or astrophotographers. We're going to kind of spread it all around and get from manufacturers to artists to people in the industry. It's great.
Okay, I want to get a specific question in about tomorrow. This is from Home Up, and apparently he or she is local and goes, okay, I'll try to head out. I've got a bad flu. But where in Times Square are they going to be? And is this still in Times Square? Do we know that
It is in
information
Times
yet?
Square.
It is in Times Square. We're going to be situated between 43rd and 44th in Broadway. So if there's a big American flag that's in the lower part of Times Square technically goes from about 42nd up to about 49. There's a big, huge American flag. We're going to be situated right in front of that.
Yeah.
Smashed between that and about H&M.
You can't miss it. It's
Can't
huge.
miss it.
It's
It's
huge.
so-
He doesn't mean American flag like, hey, this is
Yeah, it's a big, huge,
6
bright,
feet wide.
I mean,
This is like LED panel.
yeah, probably 50, 60 feet wide, by
Okay.
20 feet
Huge.
high. Oh yeah, it's gigantic.
So-
I mean, you go stand next to it, and you're tiny. So and you can't miss it. It's on the pedestrian side. There's now they've done a very good job, blocking off a lot of the streets and making the tables and whatnot. So you can't miss this.
So
Okay.
Ian and Tony will be manning the scopes. Stephen and I will be in handcuffs.
Taking the
I'm like,
Familiar
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a story there, right, Ian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does Dustin end up in handcuffs quite a bit?
Not always by police.
Oh man.
Okay.
There we go.
We are day drinking.
These aren't police. These are the terrorist control unit.
They were pretty serious.
Different.
They were.
And actually, so like K-Tech, he's my cinematographer, my camera guy. We're making a little documentary, and we went out Monday. I just landed. We went out that night to kind of scope the area, and there was no joke, like 6 of them right in front of the flag with, I mean, legit
Machine guns.
Legit machine guns.
Yeah.
Bulletproof vests.
Well, they had them last time too. And that's what's
I've
so
never
funny.
seen that. They're trying to know
Man,
this time
yeah.
they're
So
there, man.
I'm standing there. I'm surrounded by these counterterrorism unit guys trying to, tell them we got permission from the city, telling the city we got permission from them, keep them talking long enough to let you guys do your thing. Steven walks up while I'm talking to these big scary guys, and he's just like, "Man, do you guys want to take a look? You guys want to take a look through the scope?" They're like, "No, but we have machine guns." So
that's New York for you.
Yeah.
The one thing I will always remember from that is you guys, Dustin and Steven, are both talking to the counterterrorism unit, trying to deflect them, and Dustin just leans over to me and he's just like, "Keep setting up."
Don't stop what you're doing. I got this.
Just keep doing. I'll apologize for it later, man. Just set up. If they drag me away, that gives you an extra 15 minutes.
Exactly,
You've got this.
We already pulled our line. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So
Just keep going.
Oh man,
Superluminal wants to know if we're having whiskey. Yes, we are.
we are.
Very good whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
There's been a good deal of scotch on this trip.
There has been.
Well, when I landed.
And I want to thank you for that, Stephen. That's
Oh,
wow.
So not even. We have a nice collection here. We like having big parties and inviting a whole range of people, like not just people in the medical field or my girlfriend's in finance. From artists, random degenerates we meet, locals, people even just off Instagram.
Yeah.
Astromom actually came to one of our parties. I had never met her, just with the Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, my girlfriend and I were having a party. Do you want to come down?" And actually, we interviewed her just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And she just told the story. She's like, "Yeah, but like, I don't know these. We're gonna go all the way to some random place in Manhattan." So she actually, her son was a double black belt, and so she brought her son with her to the party, and it was great. Actually, usually I'll set up one of the scopes on the
Cool,
terrace.
man. Yeah.
So she kind of like, I wouldn't say man, but womaned the scope, and So
Well, you have a beautiful place here with 2 terraces.
Very lucky.
Yeah,
And,
beautiful place. We've got a view right now where I'm sitting of the new Freedom Tower.
Yep.
The One World Tower.
Yep.
Is that what it's called? Yeah,
And,
it's beautiful.
One World Observatory is
Yeah.
the observation deck.
Yeah.
I will say there is no telescope in that observatory. Actually, there was a small one on display.
Yeah, there was
like
one
a-
in like a museum piece.
Yeah,
in
but-
a
Coming
case.
down.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
an active observatory.
We need to call them and set them straight.
That's right.
There needs to be a
But
telescope
the
up
one
there.
thing that's pretty cool is it is pointing south, so like all the celestial bodies, and
Yeah.
so like it's cool in a sense. Like I've gotten some shots of like literally Orion like right next to the needle,
Mm-hmm.
but also like sometimes when I would do imaging of the moon, right when the moon would cross, it'd be done because by the time it crossed the rest of it, it'd already be under the horizon. So
Yeah.
I think it was Larry saying that because you guys after we got shut down last year, we actually all came here and we ended up setting up but buildings is a real thing you got to kind of battle here.
Well, it's fortunate that you're on a rooftop
Yes.
because you're up above a lot of it.
a lot of
you
it
know.
for the
Yeah.
most part. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
best you can try to in New
Right.
York,
Right.
So, but if it wasn't for this, I actually probably would not have gotten into it. We had moved in, and I remember
You mean this apartment?
this apartment.
Okay.
And I had a telescope when I was in 6th or 7th grade.
I don't know, man. You talk about this all the time. I feel like it's in your blood. I don't know if you.
Well, it was in the blood, but it's one of those things that you just don't really think about.
It wasn't sparked.
And then what happened was we were out one night, and I look up, and I was like, man, you can actually see a lot of stars for New York City.
Right.
And then about a month or two later, we had a 6-month anniversary, and she got me that first refractor, and it went from looking into it, and then to doing a little bit more like online, and then I'm like, there's people that take pictures through it, and then there's people that don't even look at it and only take pictures. Like, who are these crazy people? And then like one thing, I went from 1 scope to 2 to 3 to almost I had like 10 at that time, and I would spend out all like till like 2:30 in the morning out looking, and then I'd have to go back to sleep, get up at 4:30, go to the hospital. It was like, and man, it's like
It's in your blood.
You got a telescope for your 6-month anniversary. It's not even a real anniversary, man. You got a telescope for that? Hey, this has to be our 6-month co-host anniversary. You didn't give me anything.
Time for a scope.
Where's the telescope?
Time for a scope, you know?
Yeah.
6 months, time for a
Why
scope,
didn't
baby.
I would
Time for a scope, baby.
let's put it this way. 6-month anniversary, got a telescope. 7-month anniversary, I was up there looking at the scope.
Yeah.
There was no, you know,
Yeah.
Telescope widow time? No. Just say. Let me ask Superluminal's question because it's a good one. So you guys are shooting narrowband. I guess tomorrow night he's talking about.
Uh-huh.
Are mono cameras better for narrowband filters than a one color shot?
Yes. The simple answer is yes, they are.
But
There's an asterisk. Not for what we're trying to do, which is share this with as many people as possible. People want to see images in color, and we've done it both ways. You know, when we first started doing this, we didn't have the Triad filter yet. So the only way for us to do it was to take super narrow filters, right? We started with 3 nanometer HA filters, and we would go show people deep space from cities, and we would pull up like the Horsehead Nebula and show people this structure coming in, and it was really impressive for people, but they'd always ask, like, well, why is it black and white? Right. You know, in your images, it shows up in color, but in the images, obviously, we do a lot more data. We stack it all together. We get color images. But we realized that when we would show people in dark skies with a color camera the same images, even though it had less structure, seeing it in color made it real for people. It made it to where they understood, people that don't deal with astronomy every day, understood that they're looking at something, you know, and kind of more what it was. We could explain it better. And so the Triad filter was about exactly that. How do we take what we're doing, how do we get that structure, that really narrowband structure, and bring it to people in a way where they can see it in color? And Chris Hendren at OPT, he's our pro services director. He deals mostly with NASA
And we're gonna have him on podcast.
He will be, yeah. He is one of the best in the world at astronomy, and he lives for this stuff. He had this idea, and he's like, we gotta be able to make this filter that can do all 3 or even 4 channels at once. Why don't we do hydrogen alpha, hydrogen beta, oxygen 3, and sulfur have super narrowband? We know we're putting it over a color camera, so we're going to lose a lot of the data because of the Bayer matrix and that stuff. But you know what? If we get enough of it to show people this in color, we can always shoot more data. We can always do more exposures and keep making the image better and better and better. But that first image is probably going to be enough to show people something that's going to forever change their life. And he wasn't wrong. When we do this and we show people and they see the Horsehead Nebula or Orion Nebula or anything coming through in color, in real time, it's a game changer.
Yeah, it really is. And what's cool too is the Triad filter just started this snowball effect of, okay, now we have this one-shot color filter, but you can use your one-shot color camera in cities. And so now this changes the game because astronomers have star parties, and they usually ask you to come out to the middle of nowhere, hours
Very
away.
scary places.
Yep,
Yeah.
and meet tons of people you've never met.
Yeah.
And I mean, for us, we do that all the time, so it sounds great, and that gets us really excited. But to somebody who's never heard of star parties and doing things like that, that's either very intimidating or just sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
So with the Triad filter, we can now bring astronomy to cities.
If you're getting the location to where you're going at GPS decimal coordinates and not an address, that's a problem, right? So,
Yeah, it's such a creepy thing.
Can't even see your feet.
It's such a creepy thing to tell these people. Like the girl that just asked, I forgot what you said the name was there. But it's like, hey, why don't you meet us in the middle of nowhere where you can't see anything, you don't know where you are, and nobody can help you. And we're going to look at the stars together.
And
It's so much easier to say, why don't you meet us in Times Square? You're safe. Everybody's going to be there anyway. It's going to be more of just a set the scopes down and have a great time with everybody. That's a cool event.
Yeah.
Meeting out 4-hour drive in the middle of nowhere. That's tough, man. That's
Especially
tough.
like, because this is one thing I've tried to tackle a lot with the film with women, and that's how, because predominantly men in astrophotography.
Yeah.
And,
It's a problem.
Astromom herself just the other day said, I'm I'm a little, lady. I love it, but for me to go out there and bring all my equipment in the dark, and actually it was a great story she told us at lunch. But there is this like group of these younger guys are all hammered, and she's out there by herself.
Right.
And she was like, these guys are gonna steal my equipment. They're like, oh, what do you got over there? Is it expensive?
Yeah.
And
I
she's
know,
like,
because it's
"No,
conspicuous.
it's
You
not
don't just you can't.
And she got really lucky because she was like, well, she's like, the moon's about to come up, like rise, and she's like right on the water, so it has this beautiful, huge, and like it did just in the time, and like so while they were like oohing and ahhing, she packed up her stuff and like secretly got out of there, but she's like, to go out there, there's no one
that's
else
a
around,
shame too.
And so it's great to be able to take something like this.
Well, there's reason to be nervous, man. People are crazy, right? And
Yeah.
and even coming here, she had to bring a, like you said, double black belt with her to feel safe. That's a problem. So imagine if you were trying to get her to go out 4 hours away into a desert. It's an uncomfortable thing for good reason, and that's why you have to be able to bring it to where people already are.
Even for a woman, or even for a guy.
For anyone.
For anyone,
Yeah.
yeah.
For anyone, it's uncomfortable. And I don't know. I just think you got to be able to bring it to people where they are. It was a nightmare to develop the filter, and that's why it hasn't been done. But there's a lot of reasons not to do that. I mean, we're talking about the Bayer matrix, so you're going to lose at least half your data anyway to filters that can't let the light come through that you're trying to get. There's only 1 out of every 4 pixels that can even accept hydrogen because it's a red filter. And then from there, you're putting another filter, and filters do not pull things in, they reject things.
Yep.
So you have rejection on top of rejection, and then we're
Sounds
saying...
like my dating life.
Yeah, exactly. It does sound like your dating life. And then from there, we started working with manufacturers explaining this idea, and everybody's saying, no, that's a crazy idea. You can't do it. And there are only, a handful of manufacturers in the world that produce filters on a level that we would call acceptable anyway. And so we went through them, and there was literally only one manufacturer that we found globally that could make the filters to a spec that we felt like, which was 95% transmission or better. We will not accept it otherwise, right? And everywhere we were looking was like, yeah, we can make this filter, but it's going to be so fragile that if someone breathes on it, it's going to be useless, or it will have a transmission of 40%. We're already rejecting too much light. We can't give up another 60%. You just
Photons
can't.
are precious right now.
So we found one manufacturer that does a ton of stuff for the government and NASA and everyone else, and they said, you know what? Give us 6 months. But we love this idea, and we're going to do this. And we partnered with them, and it has been phenomenal. The images we've seen coming in from this have been insane.
Images
have
from
been
customers.
insane.
Well, talk a little bit about what this Triad filter is best for. What kind of objects is it best at imaging?
Anything that's an emission nebula, right? You're not going to do well with galaxies on this, or anything like reflection nebula. It's got to be something that's just cranking out light through HA or oxygen, sulfur. But most of the big colorful nebulas, all the ones I post on my Instagram are emission nebula, but all the famous ones. Yeah, the Rosette, the Cone Nebula, the Horsehead, the Jellyfish Nebula, Orion Nebula, right? All of the big ones. The Lagoon, the Trifid, Omega. Really, if you can name it, it's probably that. The few that you wouldn't be able to do well would be like the Witch's Head, or
Pleiades, just like things that aren't emission nebula.
Yeah,
it's got to be an emission nebula. But I mean,
the blue ones,
Yeah.
for the most part, right?
You're not limited because I mean, if people who shoot narrowband anyway, those are the targets they can shoot.
Yeah.
And so if you can shoot it with a narrowband set of filters, you can shoot it with a one-shot color and a Triad filter.
Yep, absolutely. And you can use the Triad filter on a monochrome camera as your luminance channel, which makes a ton of sense. You get this perfect luminance data, and right now people are shooting just 3 filters, HA, S2, O3, and then combining it as red, green, blue with the show combination, and then there's your image. But why not have a luminance channel that has all of them collecting light at the same time? The same way you have, instead of just red, green, blue, you have LRGB. So now you can have that, Triad filter and then RGB along with it in your show data. It makes a ton of sense.
Your pictures, as Dustin likes to say, it makes them look crispy and crunchy.
Yeah,
Crispy and
I mean, it
crunchy.
gives them that 3D element that people are looking for,
So we like to call Dustin's pictures, they're like KFC because they're extra crispy.
Extra cooked, man. I cook them and then I throw them back in the oven and cook them again,
Throws them in the deep fryer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let me get to a couple questions, then we're going to have to wrap it up soon. I think it's Sea-Wags. It's hard to know how you say backwards 3, but that's an E, right? Sea-Wags?
I don't know.
Guys, this channel is great. Question, how do you bridge the gap with people who clearly don't look up? I mean, I often will find myself in discussion with people who are narrowly oriented and short-sighted. So I guess part of that means, we get kind of caught up in just our lives, right? We got to get to soccer, we got to go to work, we got to cook dinner, whatever it is. And these people,
I think you're best equipped to answer this, though. You've worked in the professional space, and you also work with amateur astronomers on a daily basis, right? I mean, how do you? It's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
How do you get from where we are to where we need to be?
Yeah, and I think we just have to be. Well, I think what we're doing, what all of us are doing, is the step in that direction. Going to Times Square, saying, "What is that? That's a telescope? I didn't even know they were that cool looking, or they were that portable, or that they could show so much in a light polluted place." Go where they are. So if you're wanting to maybe affect or give a soccer mom's kids something to do besides maybe going to soccer, maybe start an astronomy club or something at home.
I think you have to bring it to them.
Right, go where they are.
Yeah.
If you say, "Oh, you need to come take a look at a telescope," "Oh no, this and this and this,"
Yeah, I don't want
they
that.
don't really. It's not. They don't know what they're really missing. You have to take a look. You have to see for the first time. And what's amazing is we've gone out, K-Tech and I, with a couple of Jupiter Joe, does sidewalk astronomy here in New York. Just puts a scope down.
And he'll be tomorrow
Yep,
with
he's coming
us
tomorrow.
Yeah.
And oh man, he is. We were out filming shooting with the lunar eclipse and had the scope set up. And some people have never. I mean, I say but most have never even looked at the moon through a telescope or looked through a telescope. I would say at least 4 or 5 people and groups of people that they came back multiple times that night, and it was so cold. I mean, we were running into the American Eagle, just so our hands would unfreeze. And we were in gloves. I literally could not even it was so cold. I couldn't even turn the focus knob anymore. That's how cold it was. And people came back 2-3 times.
Yeah.
And they got photos of him. And then we went out and interviewed him about a month later. And he was saying that the people reached out to him on the Instagram that were traveling, because a lot of people who kind of travel from abroad will stay in the Times Square area, and from other parts. Man, thank you so much. We never expected
Good
to come
for
to
him,
New
man.
York.
Yeah.
And
That
look
is
at
good.
the
Jupiter
scope.
Joe.
And so
That is so good.
He's really doing great stuff, because like I said, I think most people here, if you ask them, don't even think that you can see.
You got to put it in front of people. I think
So-
that's a simple answer, right?
Yeah, so Sea-Wags, go where they are. Go where they
You know
are.
what the
Put
number
it
one
in front.
question they ask is? Does it cost money? He says it's the biggest problem. He's people always come up and they want to look, but they think I'm going to charge them. And it's no.
Yeah.
Come on.
I've
for
gotten
free.
that.
It
I've
might,
gotten
I don't
that
know if it's a New
wavelength.
York thing.
I've
but,
gotten that down in wavelength. That people
Yeah.
will have the 20-inch Dob, and people walk by and say, "Hey, why don't you guys take a look at the moon?" They're like, "How much?"
Yeah.
No, free, man. Come on.
Come on, yeah. Come on in. It's no charge. I'm going to leave this with a final question from Super Luminal, who's asking, does Dustin have a VSD 100? Is it worth selling my car for? I seriously want one.
Give me a second.
All right, stand by. I think he's going. All right.
Yes, by the way.
I don't go anywhere without it.
Ask and ye shall receive.
I don't go
This
anywhere
guy has
without it.
all the toys. This guy has all.
I've seen it.
Oh, this is my baby right
Thing of
here.
beauty, man.
This is my baby.
It's a thing of beauty.
let me
Unboxing
hit my
video.
drink.
You didn't know that.
What
We're
kind
doing
of
an
car
unboxing
does he
video.
have? What kind of car do you got?
Yeah, that's a good point, Super Luminal. What kind of car do you got? It's going to matter, I think.
And this is a helical focus.
Yeah, so I have the Pentax is my my 125, and this is basically the same Pentax design through Vixen, but yeah, this is an f3.8 scope, and a lot of my wide field images come from
Your camera's right there.
this
so.
bad boy right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, this thing is a fast scope. It's perfect for wide field imaging, and this is what we'll be in Times Square with.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
give a quick audio description for people listening to the podcast.
Yeah, so I mean, it's God. This thing. What do you say the size of this thing is?
It's 100 millimeter, so it's a 100 millimeter aperture.
But I mean, what is roughly this size? You know?
18 inches, I'd say.
Yeah,
really
it's
small.
it's small.
Yeah, maybe
it's
2 feet.
super lightweight.
Really
Yeah.
portable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's truly portable.
I mean, it's carry-on size.
Yeah.
You can
Can't
carry
put it
this
in a
on.
backpack,
You can
but
carry it on too.
I would say is that it's a sure carry on.
It's like a 100 to 400 camera lens.
Yeah.
So Superluminal says he has a Volvo.
Oh, that's okay.
So you might be able to.
Yeah. This is a beautiful scope.
And so you focus it by just
Yeah, it's got a helical focuser just like camera lenses do. And
why helical versus just any other kind of type? Is it just that model?
Pentax always did that, and they just stuck with it, I think, to kind of tip the hat to Pentax. But what a lot of people do is they lock down the helical because they don't like it, and they'd rather have like temperature compensating or automated focusers, and then they just adapt them right to the back. And so they don't use the helical, but I kind of like the helical. It's fun to. It's super precise, and this scope is just a work of art. It really is.
How old is that scope?
I've had this thing since they came out. Actually, Ginny's first telescope ever for imaging. She had a Explorer 152 AR before for visual, but her first imaging scope was this. And we've had one ever since, man.
It's pretty fast too. It's f3.8.
F3.8, yeah. So your exposures are super short. For our purposes, showing people space in real time or as close to real time as possible, it does the job.
It is. I mean,
you
put a reducer in it too.
You can get it down to F3.
Wow.
This thing is killer.
And what's is it use a clamshell or rings or what do you?
Yeah, we've got rings for it, and they clamp here in the front so that you don't lock down the focuser. Because if you come too far back, you'll lock it down.
A little bazooka.
But this is my baby.
This
is my baby. I image with this thing all the time.
Okay, well, we're at an hour, guys, so we're going to have to stop here, I think. So let us know what you guys think. This was a live stream in addition to a recording of the podcast. It was great to be able to interact, I thought, with people. Great. So
and the first live, sit down.
Absolutely.
And meet space.
All three of us,
First live Space Junk podcast with the Space Junk crew.
That's right, exactly. So
never been done.
So check us out. If you don't know about Space Junk, go look at your podcast aggregator, look us up, subscribe to us. We post every week, don't we, Ian?
And if you want a Space Junk t-shirt, buzz one of us.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cindy and
Lima.
Down
to Times Square.
We've got them.
Come on
down.
We've
got our shirts. We got a ton of them. And for people that love the show, just send us a note. We'll make sure you get a shirt.
That's right.
Yeah. I set up a general deep email account, hangouts@deepastronomy.com. Email me there. I'll forward it to Dustin and Ian, and we'll make sure you guys do that. So. Superluminal says, wow, an F3 refractor. That's nuts. It has a huge imaging circle, too. Bigger than full-frame DSLR.
Yeah, I use medium format on this thing.
Yeah.
Superluminal,
thanks for doing. I got to say one quick thing to Peter Q. Happy birthday, man. Cheers.
Woo.
Happy birthday, Peter Q.
Yeah.
He's joining us.
This is fun, guys.
Northeast of England, a Geordie guy. Well,
right.
Peter Q, happy birthday. And with that, we will sign off. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. On behalf of Dustin Gibson, Ian Lauer, and Stephen Swancoat, I'm Tony Darnell. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, keep looking up. My voice caught right there. I was about to say.
You got choked up, man.
I did, man. I was about
You're ready to cry.
All right, I'll stop these streams.
All right.
I'll stop the streams.
That was fun.
No room tone.
He said no room tone.
Yeah,